Hi, welcome back to Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me. I'm Alex Pavljuk, host of this podcast, and I am so excited to welcome you to the show. If this is your first episode, I'm just going to start with a blanket statement and say this is not the typical format for an episode. And I mean that also for our regular listeners. This is not going to be a typical format. I have no guest. It's just me. It's going to be a shorter episode. And you may be wondering, Alex, you're dropping the ball. I was really looking forward to an interview with Gail Stavitsky, our chief curator, or man, like your episode with Adrian Baxter Bell was incredible. I was hoping for more of that. Or, oh my God, where's the artist? Where's Melissa? I thought when you're out of episode ideas, you ask Melissa to be on the show. And all of that is true. But, this episode, I wanted it to be a little bit more intimate, and I kind of wanted to just ruminate on something, because this weekend at the Montclair Art Museum, we had our first ever food truck fest and cocktail crawl. And you may be wondering, what does a food truck fest have to do with a museum? And the answer is a lot, actually. We hosted this first time event, and it was a gamble. When I started at the museum as an intern in 2022, I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of big questions, because obviously entering as a young, underinformed, honestly and innocently ignorant kind of new person to this world, the world of nonprofit, the world of museums, the world of the arts, I had kind of big ideas about what a museum could be and should be. I think it's the impetus for the show in a lot of ways, dreaming of what a museum can be. And I bought in very quickly to the museum's mission. And in a lot of ways, I felt at times that we spoke about, this idea that the museum's for everybody, and that the museum is accessible for everybody, and the museum should be a sounding board for the community and a place to reflect and think and dream and believe and belong. And I do think we exude those things. I believe it firmly. I think we have a really important role, and I think that we, act on and fulfill that mission every single day. And now my butt isn't super strong. I'm not going to come in contrasting and clashing with that idea or anything like that. But I always said from the beginning, alongside other things that I've talked about on the show, about, the role that marketing has with curatorial and showing the behind the scenes. One of the other things that I was I dreamed about and wondered and kind of was curious about is like our public programming. When I look at our roster of events, month to month, the most, I think, visible is Free First Thursday, which is an incredibly amazing and democratic and open and vibrant celebration that we do, roughly every month. It's really 6 months out of the year. We take a little bit of a break here and there, but it's mostly every first Thursday, of the month. And it's a chance for community members far and wide to come visit MAM and experience all that we have to offer for, no cost. And it's great and it's amazing. But what else is there, for the general public, for for a family, for, a community member? And then you look around and it's like, okay, we have lectures, we have, Art Meets Jazz, which is incredible. We have, all of these events. We have Lego Day, which is incredible and amazing. But, when you kind of boil it down, there's not a ton of events that present the widest net of reach to introduce the museum to new people. And I think a lot of the content we make, whether it's this podcast or, the videos we create, I think all of that kind of helps. But from a public programming standpoint, I didn't see it. And, I didn't see it, I guess, in a way that was as expansive as I would hope. And, every year, the development team, Francis, who was one of the earliest guests on the show, they come to marketing and kind of will be like, we need ideas for annual fund. And for context, annual fund is essentially when you go to the website and you hit donate, that donate button is going to our annual fund. We like to say it keeps the lights on, but essentially it's about the general housekeeping. It costs a lot to keep the museum running every single day, and the annual fund helps offset that cost. And so we pitched a bunch of things to Anthony and Francis and Abby and Emily and all of the amazing folks down in development. And, essentially nothing was really sticking. All of it was either too much work or not enough revenue and yada, yada, yada. And so we came to Food Truck Fest. And when I was in high school, I worked on food trucks, and I had seen the amount of people that come to Food Truck Fests and, the incredible community that's kind of built at these festivals. And I was like, I think that's a great idea. First off, I've lived in North Jersey now since college. I've been here 5 years, Montclair specifically 5 years. And I don't know of any food truck fests, back home in central Jersey, down by the shore, there's tons all the time, huge turnouts. In my hometown, there's a winery. They have food truck fests almost every other weekend. There's thousands of people there. It's beloved. And I was like, you know what? That's a gap in our town. We don't have that. There's food trucks. There's plenty of food trucks. I see them all over, but there's no dedicated, organized, day where all of them are together. There's music, there's fun, there's bars. And so I was like, we can do that, and all of the revenue can go to annual fund. I mean, how much work can it really be? Obviously, all event programming is a lot of work, and that was a bit nearsighted on my, my side. But at the end of the day, they kind of were like, oh my God, that's a great idea. You're right. We should pursue this. And there was a lot of internal debate and a lot of kind of, conversation, some real debate about whether or not this was a valuable spend of time. And we took a risk. We definitely took a gamble and said, you know what, we're going to try this. It was about 6 or 7 months of planning, about a full year of thought went into it, but about 6 or 7 months of like real, okay, how do we get this to happen type organization. And all in all, it came together, and we had an amazing event. It was about 1,500 people. We made tons of money for annual fund, which, as I kind of was saying before, is historically a difficult thing to raise money for. And, I am just incredibly proud of how the event turned out. I am so amazed at how many people from all across Montclair, across Essex County, across North Jersey, across New Jersey, came. It actually ended up becoming, not to date this, but it kind of became a little bit of a campaign stop for the New Jersey gubernatorial race. We had Sean Spiller, former mayor of Montclair, but current Democratic candidate for governor. Again, today is actually Tuesday. This is election days that I'm recording this, so we'll see if when this comes out, he's actually the Democratic candidate. But as of this recording, he's on the ballot. And so he was here shaking people's hands, seeing the scenes, being a part of the community, and, watching this museum transform, watching the lawn be filled with kids playing, cornhole and lounging on chairs and towels, eating food and drinking cocktails and laughing and running around, and kids creating, not even kids, just whole families like playing with chalk on the side, on the blacktop, and creating beautiful, amazing art for all to see. And then I think, which was most important to me, is that the galleries were filled. I think that was the biggest thing that we fear when we do public programming that isn't necessarily directly related with art is, are the people that are going to come, if they're not regularly attending the museum, do they really care about the art? Is that why they're coming here? Are they just coming for the event? Are they just coming for the food? Are they just coming for the drinks? What is it? And I was so excited to know that the entire time. I was only outside. I couldn't even make it inside to check things out because I was so slammed running around, working admissions, helping out at bars, filming and documenting as per my job. And when I found out that the galleries were packed, I looked around and I was like, there's 1,000 people outside. What are you like? There's 500 or 600 people inside too. And that was huge. It was a huge relief. It was a huge point of joy and pride. And, it's incredible. And I think that I hope what this Food Truck Fest sort of becomes a catalyst for is further programming, further public engagement, more fun, not necessarily directly art related activities that can be paired with art in a beautiful way. I think that's important. And whether that's through a concert series or through more food truck fests or through things like, game nights, like trivia night or something, there's a way to keep doing this. And I think what I learned and what I hope the community who joined us learned is that this is a vibrant place. It reaffirmed our mission in an amazing and constructive and incredible way. And I think it's an event that will linger in the mind of community members, and I think will generate a little bit of FOMO from people who didn't come. It was a great time, and I really hope, and I think that this will become an annual event that we get to continue to do and to cherish and to celebrate and to be excited for. Even like on a personal note, like I worked on food trucks in high school and early college. It's a hard business. It's a tough business. And to know that by the end of the night, not even by the end of the night, 2 hours before we were done with the festival, I had trucks letting me know that they were shutting their windows. They were out of food. They were wiped clean. That's incredible. And, for them to sell out is a huge, huge success. It doesn't happen all the time. And the fact that nearly every single truck was wiped clean, and if not wiped clean, pretty much selling fries and sodas by the end, was huge. And I'm excited for what the future holds, not only for future, festivals like this, but for just all of our public programming. I really hope to see more of it kind of baked into our calendar here at MAM, and I think that it's something that the community is really itching for. And I think that's the beauty of our grounds, the museum grounds. There's not many spaces like this in Montclair. Obviously we have our parks and that's great and stuff, but Montclair is getting rapidly developed. It continues to develop. It's very urban, and at a certain point we're losing these open spaces. And to have a place that's been here for 110 years, that has, tons of open grass and a parking lot that can be filled with, obviously cars, but, for festivals like this, food trucks and vendors and games and, I would love like an inflatable, like bouncy castle for like, another event, like something, it's possible. And I hope that, everybody who attended, everybody who wanted to come, everyone who's never been to the museum and this was their first opportunity or experience or exposure, continues to check out all that MAM has to offer. And, at a certain level, like it's not just about MAM, it's about all institutions, libraries, museums, cultural organizations. See what they have going on. Check out what they have to offer. If it's a museum, see what art they have on view. Museums are a special place. And right now, museums are struggling. Cultural institutions are struggling. Their worth is being questioned in a major way, in a scary way. And I personally think that events like this, public programming, public engagement, community outreach, is exactly what museums and libraries and cultural institutions are for. Obviously, it's about the art. You can learn a lot from art. Art is the most important thing. It's the driving voice of why we exist and why we do what we do. It's been the driving force for 110 years. But people need to see the art and they need a reason to come. And activities like this, festivals like this, Free First Thursday, Art Meets Jazz, lectures, Lego Day, even the more, expensive things like the Gala or Art Uncorked are incredible, invaluable experiences that drive the museum forward, that keep us doing what we do best, and that's celebrating and supporting and lifting up and being a voice for good within not just our community, but hopefully New Jersey, the United States, everywhere. Because it's not just about MAM, it's about all of us. It's the collective effort of educating and informing and inspiring not just our youth, but everybody who feels that museums can be and are for them. With that said, thank you so much for coming to the Food Truck Fest this weekend. I apologize that this was like a weird kind of monologue-y episode. I've never really had to do this before, but I think it turned out okay, and I hope I didn't bore you too much and it didn't get too preachy. Anyway, this has been Maybe Actually Museums Are For Me. I'll have a normal, regularly scheduled interview for you next week. Otherwise, thank you so much for supporting this museum. If you're interested in membership, if you're interested in donating, if you're interested in attending, please visit our website. It's www.montclairartmuseum.org. We are open. The galleries are open. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We have Free First Thursday. It's not technically on the first Thursday of this month. It's on June 12th, but coming up this week, it's going to be really great and really exciting. It's Caribbean heritage themed, so there's going to be a lot of fun stuff going on. Some food trucks, some music, obviously our galleries and art, and we hope to see you there. Thanks so much for supporting this museum. Thanks so much for helping us keep doing what we're doing. I'll talk to you later.